Very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's uLaw webinar. The topic for today's webinar is how do you ensure the BX, CX, UX, and PX is high for your law office. Kindly to use this topic, log into your individual law society web portals, and it's been accredited for 1 hour of professionalism CPD credits in the provinces of Ontario, British Columbia, and New Brunswick. So the title is important, so you would use the title, how do you ensure BX, CX, UX, and PX is high for your law office? That's the title. Enter it and enter 1 hour of professionalism CPD credits. Okay? Please do use the chat window at all times to ask any questions that you may have during this session. Happy Friday the 13th. Hope you're all staying safe, warm. And for those who've just joined us, once again, please use the chat window. It's a 1 hour CPD webinar with the title, how do you ensure BX, CX, UX, and PX is high for your law office? Like every other uLaw webinar, today's webinar has a specific agenda. We're going to look at the definitions of these 4 different components, the 4 different X factors, or the 4 different experiences that you as a business can possibly offer to your consumers or your customers. We'll take a brief look at each of these experience points, tools and techniques that you as a business can inherit both from experience as well as defining it as a process of defining who you are as an individual and how that best reflects across your business ownership and the law that you offer. As we explore these 4 factors, we'll also start to define, how best you can use automation across the tools that you probably can explore using to provide a much better service experience overall to your customers. Okay, and we'll look at the different products, maybe talk about practice management and legal accounting software and its key contribution to the overall product experience. And let's dive right into it. We start first with BX, or what we call as the brand experience. It's possibly every experience considered also to be an X factor, a major factor that you could use to differentiate yourself from the next legal firm in town. So if you really were to consider yourself as the brand, so if the individual is the brand, the closest analogy that I can think about is your character or your personality would be the brand experience itself. Really talks about the characteristics of an individual, talks about who the person is, what do they stand for. It's an easier way for you to socialize with friends, a faster way for you to get your message across in an audience. Very similarly, if you were to look for your company, the brand is really the character of the business and what it stands for and how best you would now represent this to your customers. But at least to begin with, it truly is an initial representation of your business, right? Whether it's a recognition through colors, whether it's a brand recognition through the initials that's used, maybe the caption that's used, whatever may be that X factor that you include in defining that brand experience. Make it your own. Bring that personality of yourself and your business heard loud and clear so that it's easier for your business and for the consumer to have a better brand recall. So whether you're a brand new law firm or a legal firm that's looking to define your brand experience, or if you are a seasoned law firm, legal firm looking to revisit your brand experience, you certainly want to consider if that brand today adequately reflects who you are, your values as a business, and the competencies that you offer to your customers. As part of that brand experience, it's a great tool and a great way for you to message these three important characteristics to your prospective clients, but also resonate well with existing clients so that they can now become brand ambassadors for you and help you through the referral mode, refer you to friends and family. Right? Because as I'm sure you can appreciate, a good majority of customers that are attracted by legal firms or law firms come through these referral sources. Whether it's a friend referral, family referral, even another colleague who's referring you, it comes down to who you are, the values that you offer, the competencies. So, very friendly legal firm, and the competencies could be very friendly legal firm that focuses on family law. So those are the types of ease of brand experience that you want to be able to provide as either part of your captioning and eventually as part of that service offering to further validate the brand. And the last thing that we've kind of summarized that we look throughout all brands is, if possible, as a legal firm, you may want to be able to help imprint a bit of confidence in the service excellence, quality assurance that you and your legal firm can deliver to your client. Because there's always this concept of a bit of a fear factor to approach a legal matter, approach a legal firm. So in addition to imprinting the confidence, if you can also imprint a bit of empathy in how you go about serving your client, really being able to understand their needs, being available at a time of need when the customer is requiring your presence, your representation. So a good combination of skills, competencies, a bit of empathy, and a lot of confidence allows you, of course, to build a great brand for your legal firm. Now, once you've established that brand, before we move into the customer experience, I definitely want to talk about how do you mobilize this brand across the digital channels that we have today so that many individuals can now experience and learn about that brand. So first thing is to be able to create a brand experience for your legal firm. The next step, as it is an important strategy for your marketing purposes, the next step really is to consider how best can I create brand awareness within the target audience of customers that I would like to work with. I'm sure you've all heard of the social media strategies that are employed or deployed to you and I as end consumers for various other products in day-to-day lives. And in many cases, those channels are no exceptions to brand awareness for law firms and legal firms as well. So, of course, taking that brand, creating, of course, a website, that's a given. Certainly having a website presence has almost become a must for a legal firm in today's day and age, and especially in today's day and time. Now, when you come across brand awareness and then talk about website, one of the important strategies that we start to see businesses are starting to follow is finding the right domain names that reflect the brand or the values that this brand imprints. So it could be the law office, friendly neighborhood legal firm. There could be various different important strategies that you can now consider by looking up at websites that allow you to buy these domains. And you don't have to stop with one. You could pretty much purchase multiple domains with the caption or the brand or the initials. So it can be A and B law firm. That could pretty much be the domain name. But you could also buy the friendlyfamilylawyer.com or .ca potentially as a website domain name, and redirect anyone who comes to either or of these websites for better awareness through Google search, and also making it easy for people to recall your website. The next, of course, after the website is now being able to take that and fuel that awareness, fuel that marketing now across your specific social media channels, depending on the target audience. So if you're looking at Facebook, Twitter, you really have to consider if Instagram is a channel that makes sense for you as a legal firm to invest your marketing dollars into. And this is part of not only the brand creation, but it's a big part of brand management that we're going to come into later as we look at how practice management tools are going to give you the answers for how best these social channels are working towards brand awareness. Is that driving customers into your business? How effective is the channel that you're using to create that awareness and bring the customers in? That's the bottom line. So first, you decide upon a brand that talks about who you are, your values and competencies, and then have a strategy to be able to market that brand across many digital channels, including email, could be print, could be social media, most importantly a website, considering multiple domain names as a strategy. Then, of course, utilizing the same experience across your internal documentation that you would potentially submit or present to your customers, whether that's a retainer or an engagement letter, an invoice, a statement of activity, etc. And again, we'll look at how practice management tools allow you to create that consistency across all these documents once you've clearly established what the brand guideline looks like. And then we move on to the customer experience. The next three experiences, the customer experience, we're going to talk about user experience, and the overall product experience. Now, these three experiences are as important as your brand experience. One is to create a brand, create an awareness around the brand, a bit of a recall, and a bit of recognition around the brand. All of this happens, of course, by using the right tools and marketing strategies. The user customer and product experience helps with the next phase of your brand, which is the brand reputation. One is to have a brand recognition. Next is to have a brand reputation, which is now going to fuel those brand ambassadors we spoke about. A and B, the friendly legal firm, is actually a very friendly legal firm that you can deal with. Could possibly be a Google review that an existing customer who's experienced that with your firm may write about you. They may use third-party referral applications that you're starting to see and use that to not only recommend but refer you to friends and family for anyone who needs legal help or representation. So one is to talk the talk with brand awareness, brand recognition. The next is to walk the walk of brand reputation by delivering a high value of customer, user, and product experience. So if you really look at customer experience, we believe this starts right from the time of the initial client intake, the initial engagement touch point that customer has with you and your legal firm or your law firm. And it continues through the journey till that final statement of activity or closure note is sent out to that customer, and you've essentially established a logical closure to that business relationship with that client. And not leaving it closed, but having a logical closure to a matter, for example. But the experience is still open-ended so that the customer now comes back for a different matter, or that same customer uses their own channels, preferred channels, to refer you. And making sure that whatever you imprint as confidence through that initial brand is followed through in how you deliver the services. Because it's very easy for, of course, one bad customer to tell hundreds of their friends. If one person has had a bad experience, or if it's slightly tangential to what you promised as part of your brand, it essentially could put a bit of a dent onto the overall experiences. So we believe it is what is perceived by the customer with every in-person welcome, phone call, Zoom call, if you were to call it, and every documentation that leaves your firm. Okay? And as part of that brand reputation, the next X factor is the user experience. Now this is a little bit more granular. The user experience in today's day and age is the extra features, functionalities, and experiences your firm that can offer to your customers. So this is, for example, a multi-touch point experience that you can offer your client. There's no stringent closed doors way of operating. Walking into the office should not be the only mode in which a customer can engage with your law firm. Opening it, of course, now to phone conversations. That's been there for a while now. Now with the advent of technology, as well as because of the situation that we're all in, we're starting to find newer ways in which we can encourage potential customers to engage with law firms. You're starting to see Microsoft Teams. You're starting to see a lot of Zoom calls, WebEx, GoToMeeting. So again, various platforms that you probably should consider to help the X factor around the user experience. Now this is for client intake. We're starting to see a lot of our legal firms, law firms, use these different platforms as an opportunity to engage with that first client touch point. It's no more a phone conversation, of course, based on the prudence that the customer is comfortable with such an engagement. It allows you to put a face to the conversation as well, making it, once again, comfortable, confident, and someone easy to communicate to and work with. In addition to these platforms, to consider other strategies, tools that you may want to keep in mind to enhance that user experience are, of course, digital ways of engaging with the customer. Digital signatures, electronic documentation, online payment. So cutting the paper, cutting the difficulties, let's put it this way, of dealing with paper and having to hand it over to you. So are you still believing in mail? Or are you helping your customers succeed in a faster, more timely manner through the use of technology, techniques, tools, whatever it may be, to improve, enhance that user experience? Bottom line, a timely, quality assured delivery of service. And we certainly are going to look at examples by looking at one of the larger chains that we are comfortable dealing with on a day-to-day basis further today in the presentation. And then finally, we talk about the product experience, which is probably the final X factor as part of that brand reputation. And this is, of course, the overall experience, right from the first brand to the customer experience, through every touch point, through that ease of doing business with you, through that user experience, to the final outcome that you as a legal firm can offer your customer. Okay. The product experience is pretty much the taste that you've left that end customer with. That's going to help resonate better referrals. If they've not had an overall good product experience, that may unfortunately result in a bad taste that you leave with that customer, which many times does not lead to a good referral for your business. At the end of the day, going through that BX, CX, UX, the product experience pretty much encapsulates to that final customer if it was really worth their time and money to have dealt with your legal business to begin with, and how motivated are they to now become that brand ambassador for your business to spread the word. As word of mouth and referral marketing is now one of the leading sources of new clients to many businesses, and especially to the legal marketplace. Because there's a level of confidence when someone refers you, a friend refers your legal firm to another person. There's a sense of comfort, confidence, and a bit of friendliness, if you will. Someone has already gone through dealing with your firm and has come out having a very positive product experience. So what are some of the tools that you could use? Before I dive further into these, what are some of the tools that you can use to help revisit the product experience? So you could use surveys such as Google Forms or SurveyMonkey or any other such tools that you can send out as part of that closure note. So it could be part of that underlying statement of activity or closure letter that has a little survey that says, how would you rate your experience working, or your product experience overall working with our law firm? Maybe a link to your LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter feed, maybe a link to your Google review page, maybe a link for them to refer you in any third-party referral app that you may be invested in as a customer. So for every experience, or you could even have the old school way of calling them and then asking them if things that could have been better, things that they liked. But it does not end there. You as a business owner need to be strategic in how best you can use that experience to fuel the next referral client from that individual. You can't push them for it, but you can certainly help motivate them to naturally do that on your behalf. Okay? Now let's take a deeper dive into these 4 experiences and see if we can relate to it from a example of a Starbucks coffee store or a brand, and compare that with the right tools, documents that you as a legal firm may consider as part of that brand experience establishing. As discussed before, the brand most certainly plays a huge role in motivating the client for brand recognition, brand recall, retention, so that they can easily Google you, search you up, have brand recall for you to call them. Now you've had pizza stores that have certain types of phone numbers that pretty much comes back to your mind every time. A good example is that of Pizza Nova. If you really think about it, many times if you were to really think about it, you pretty much get to know what the number is. So the next time you don't know who to deal with, you at least have that recall. So it's one of the marketing strategies, of course. And that's part of their brand. We spoke about social branding, making sure that if you've invested in social branding, so if you've started off your journey with Facebook, whether it's yourself, whether if you're using a third-party company, a friend, someone in the family, what is important is that you have a plan and a strategy to continue with that for a certain amount of time, for at least a minimal committed time. So it's not having a Twitter feed today, and then if someone looks at it, you only have the next Twitter feed 2 years from now. If you have a Facebook, if you're going to be a thought leader, and if that's part of your brand, then you're committing yourself as part of that social brand awareness that you're creating for your brand, that you deliver on the promise of having 1 to 2 blogs written, or at least paragraphs of work written that motivates the thought leadership. So taking that brand and fueling it through social is important, but strategizing and investing the time and money to have a prolonged presence is even more important. That delivers the confidence, that delivers that comfort for a potential prospective customer deal with your legal firm. Let's assume your overall brand color across Facebook, Twitter, everything is, let's say, black and white. Because, the legal firm is all about being black and white. No shades of gray. Let's say that's your tagline. And let's say the first retainer letter that you send out to your customer is completely colorful. It's definitely not the same brand that someone's used to. It does not have the initials, for example. The customer is now going to be confused to some extent in terms of brand recall. And hence, it's a good practice to define the brand guidelines. It's actually a document. So if you work with any marketing company, whether you go to Fiverr to search up a consultant who can help you with this, or go into an actual marketing company to help you with this, what you should get is a brand guideline document that would talk about the logo, the colors, the fonts, and you would use those building blocks across all of your documents that are customer facing. And you bring that now into your legal accounting or practice management software or any tool that you may be using to deliver these documents. The benefit of having a software deliver all these documents, of course, is the consistency, so that you're not responsible for consistently repeating that same quality and the same colors. It reduces manual errors if you are doing this through a manual effort. And of course, delivers the promised brand experience, brand recall to your client. As I mentioned earlier, some documents to keep in mind to help brand experience consistency include engagement letters, retainer letters, pre-bills, invoices, retainer receipts, payment receipts, statement of activity, etc. Okay? Now, if these documents are compliant, Law Society compliant in nature, then it's best left unbranded, such as your reconciliation statement, your ledgers and journals. So through the brand experience and the need for consistency across the brand, the practice management tools, as I mentioned earlier, are important and become a key ingredient for maintaining that consistency. They often provide the tools and the process to help brand effectively and consistently across all customer-facing documents. And we're going to look at a simple example of Starbucks, where all are very much in tune with their brand, their logo, which is the mermaid. You have the colors of white, green. You're not going to walk into a Starbucks in Australia and see a purple mermaid. It could be a seasonal thing, which would still then be very consistent across a market region. So you would not find a single store, and that's the beauty of franchises, and that's the beauty of business process automation. All franchises invest heavily into how best they can automate it, because you don't want that to be manually checked. Right? So a simple brand, a simple logo, simple colors, that over a period of time, through the delivery of a consistent user, customer, and product experience, has gained tremendous brand equity with their customers. It's almost become a style statement, a statement of stature in many cities to actually have a Starbucks cup. It certainly is a hit with my kids. They have their very personal preferences when it comes to holding a Starbucks cup. Then comes into the customer experience. We mentioned this as every touch point that this potential customer or existing customer has with your legal firm. Because this is where it's their first insight into your business, their first foot in the door into your business. So every phone conversation, if you're a sole practitioner, of course, it's your responsibility to ensure that every correspondence is consistent with the promise of the brand, the promise of what your firm stands for, and the services that you offer, and are confident about being successful. But if you're a growing law firm, legal firm, training becomes an important component so that every individual in the company and who's responsible for maybe all of these factors or certain silos of these factors, that they're all trained, that they're all aware that they need to offer and provide this experience. So imagine walking into a Disney resort, walking into any chain that you have had the personal experience of working with. You would start to see that through training, every employee, every individual has a certain approachability, if you will. And that's part of the overall brand promise. A fun, swag, happy, enjoyable, stress-free environment. Right? If that's the promise of Disney, then you would certainly see, despite of your mood, everyone that's working for that brand would certainly work towards the best possible way to provide that experience to you as the customer. So reflect upon that to start to think about what is your promise to your customer. If you're good at a certain practice, find a lot of areas of practice. Of course, it's not as easy as Disney. The whole ecosystem of the legalities involved in representing someone is not as stress-free as one would hope for. But given the context, given that pretext, understanding how best you can keep that customer at comfort, and again, your brand promise, that's important to keep in mind as you deliver the next set of experiences, starting with the customer experience. Okay, so what are those? So we looked at training, whether you use Word documents, PDFs, a learning management tool or a training tool, or maybe you talk to your employees. There are many different strategies that you can keep in mind as you ensure that everyone has that similar customer experience. But when it comes to, let's say, delivering documents, you're not going to have each and every employee have their own tools and techniques and products to use and hope for a consistent experience for your end customer. And once again, that's where automation, and that's where, once again, having the right software, whether that's practice management, legal accounting, your own software, your own combination of tools can help. Ensuring the same set of documents, the first retainer letter, or maybe even a client intake form. So let's say someone gives you a call or goes to your website and there's a contact us page. And we've seen this with some of our clients, and we delivered this to them as well today. The contact us form gives that first entry where the prospective client provides their first name, last name, email, phone number, and the reason for wanting to talk to this legal firm. The next step is to actually send them an email or give them a phone conversation, briefly talk about expectations, and many law firms start to deliver client intake forms to get documentation from these clients. So a client intake form along with a scanned copy of a passport, for example, or a client intake form along with a scanned copy of a driver's license. Or if this is a business entity, whatever is important to validate that business. So starting with that client intake form where you can have your brand, moving along to your engagement retainer letter, having a detailed documentation of every touch point. This is another thing we've started to see with today's legal firms. Even if it was a flat rate or a fixed fee matter, the ability for you to docket each and every task that has gone about in that matter. So even if it's a flat fee of $1,000, that initial client intake, initial client meeting, the phone conversation, the Zoom meeting, all of that is docketed. Maybe you don't charge for each of those dockets, but you still outline the effort that has gone in on behalf of your firm. And if multiple individuals are involved in accomplishing the overall outcome of that matter, so maybe one lawyer, did that first initial meeting, a second legal professional had to deal with the second, third tasks, that's clearly outlined as well. And that's outlined in an invoice, for example, or a pre-bill, just prior to an invoice. Yet another document of customer experience. A third factor in the customer experience is being true to that retainer letter. So if you've promised a flat fee, no surprises, right? If you've agreed and signed upon a retainer letter that says that you're going to be charging a flat fee, then it's important that your invoice reflects that same understanding. So there cannot be inconsistencies where now you send them a 4-hour phone conversation at your billable hours, because that's going to derail them. Once again, the experience is not going to be consistent with what was expected, the brand, and the promised experience. And hence, it's important that you have the right tools, and I apologize for repeating this, but the practice management, legal accounting, tools and techniques that follow through on not just the brand, but the agreed upon engagement boundaries. Okay? Clarity of information, that becomes an important fourth component of the overall customer experience. Because often there is this aura in the consumer world that dealing with a legal firm can be a bit difficult, it's not straightforward, not all the information is relevant. So breaking that aura through prudent, straightforward, self-explanatory documentation that are consistent with the brand, consistent with the experience promised, is going to make you stand out. Further, embed that confidence in your customer's mind as they work with you during their own file. And of course, convert them automatically into these brand ambassadors who are proud to have worked with your firm and are happy to refer you to their friends. Once again, practice management tools, the right marketing tools, the right training tools, and the right practice management legal accounting tools all combined help elevate the customer experience. So we talk about customer experience. It's the same Starbucks logo. It's the same brand that you're dealing with. But it's still, so that's the consistency component of it. But of course, every legal matter is different. And as I mentioned, it's consistent with the expectation. But it's still a personalized offering to that individual client. And you can see if it's a latte, then it's a little bit more personalized with the name on it. People are used to this now. People are used to having their name written on that cup. It's not just for a person to call out if it's a long line for you to recognize that it's yours, but it's a bit of a customer experience touch. A marketing strategy, if you will, but very well played on that to help personalization, yet within the boundaries of the brand experience and the promise of consistency. Okay, so everything has gone well, and of course I'm hoping I've not put you down to sleep on this very, very gloomy Friday the 13th afternoon. Hope I'm making sense. Please do use the chat window at all times to share with me that I'm making sense, and if there are any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. Great. So you've got a phenomenal brand experience. The first set of phone conversations and all the documents are very consistent. Everyone's saying the right words. Everyone's behaving the exact same way that the customer had hoped. But there's just one problem. You do have to come into our office to sign this. You do have to come into our office to meet the legal professional. You must come in person and hand us over this particular check that's acceptable to us in this currency. So, you get the picture. You're starting to put a lot of ifs into the work experience and the pragmatism of dealing with your law firm. Okay, so there's a few restrictions. In a world where choices have become the marketing strategy, so a legal firm needs to start considering the right products, tools to help elevate now the user experience. You're starting to see a lot of law firms move away from, let's say, PC-based systems because it constrains them in a way, and if they're not set up to have access to these systems from home, then that takes away that edge of not being able to deliver these documents. And then comes the advent of technology and the use of cloud. Cloud-based practice management tools have almost become something that people are used to compared to when uLaw started 11 years back, for example, or some of the other competitors started in their own journey. So legal firms now start to think about the different X factors that they can provide to elevate that user experience. We have law firms where the sole practitioner is vegan. She has this go green aura to her character, and she does that in her day-to-day activity as an individual, and she wants to bring that into her firm. So go paperless. So not only as part of her characteristic, but it's also reflected in the way she does business. Making the retainer letter electronic, making signatures electronic. If you can just bear with me for a second, it looks like some of them may have dropped out from the meeting, and I'm just rejoining them again. Sorry about that. So talking about user experience and this particular client and her journey. So going paperless, so using the right tools to help reduce carbon footprint, no paper. The retainer letter is sent electronically with a digital signature. It's received from the client with the ability for them to sign, or at least reduce that one less paper, making it easy for them to pay for these services online by having online payment gateways, which do come at a certain cost, but that's the cost of business ownership as part of providing your customer that experience. And of course, having the right tools to deliver these documents, whether that's through an email, through a portal. Also, internally having the right tools to be able to elevate that user experience. So the next time someone sends an email, you're not waiting, to wait for that email, going back into your practice management tool to respond. Rather, having that mobile-based experience internally to your business to deliver that later to your customer too. User experiences can even include, of course, we're getting into that part of the time period, seasonal greetings, especially if this is a good example. Would that be of a corporate relationship too, where you can congratulate them on a certain success. So whatever it takes as part of that elevation of user experience, the right tools and techniques to keep in mind to give that X factor, something extra, an ease of doing business with your legal firm. And that's everything that we talk about in the user experience. So it's the same Starbucks cup, the brand that we're recognized with. It is certainly a personalized latte, but I'm sure you've noticed this over the past few years, maybe 5-6 years back, when it first came about, and then now it's almost become status quo. The ability for someone to order this coffee online, as much as many people ridicule it, because we're so used to going into the coffee shop for that experience, for that smell, all of that. And this conventional thought process was now broken down through the use of technology and, to some extent, forward thinking, facilitated and delivered by the using technology, of course, where now there's an order online. Now there are, of course, as part of that experience comes the ease of use and the ease of doing business with this company. And last, we come into the product experience. Now this, of course, is the, as I mentioned earlier, a combination of the brand, customer, and user experience of working with your firm. When that final closure letter was sent out and the final closure conversation has happened, what is the sense of feeling with that customer? Very happy, extremely content, very appreciative of the professional way in which you've dealt with this matter. Or it could be the converse. It could be a very bad taste, never see me again, definitely talk bad about you on social media, right? So depending on the experiences that you have provided through that journey of that customer comes this overall product experience. Let's assume all good things. So let's assume this is a great experience. And this was maybe a small claims matter. The product experience is also a great way for you to promote other areas of practice that you and your legal firm can offer. So you're starting to see, as niche and as small as legal firms have gotten to become, there's a definite need for a bit of diversification of areas of practice, at least more than one. There are, of course, law firms that only specialize in a single area of practice, but you do have law firms still and legal firms that do have expertise. It may not just be the individual that does many things. It could be a combination of individuals that represent across various areas of practice. So you could be a law firm that does family and criminal, family and real estate, small claims, LATB, POA, and WSIB. So we're starting to see, either through a cohesive force of individuals or the individual himself or herself being adequately trained and educated in these areas, being able to offer a variety of service offerings. So a customer who's had a phenomenal product experience, it would be a shame if you as a firm did not expose her or him with the other areas of practice that you excel in. because now they certainly appreciate the brand. They understand the customer experience is going to be great because every touch point was awesome. The user experience of paying for those bills online through a credit card is the same. What differs, of course, is the area of practice, and of course there will be a bit of reference calls maybe to understand how good you are at a family matter compared to how good you are at representing a real estate transaction. But the first 2 to 3 experiences of working with your business would still be the same. Or even if your firm were to refer another friend, that would be well appreciated by your customers too, at the worst, right? And hence the product experience is probably one of the most important experiences that you want to work towards, because this is where you can ask and hopefully have that repeat business come through either from this same customer or through a referral from this customer to another friend. So where does tools and techniques come into play? For you to know what areas of practice to best represent yourself and your firm, you need to understand and dig deeper into understanding your brand and the revenue that comes towards this brand. So how much money do you make in family? How much money do you make in real estate? How much of money do you make in small claims? If you're not making much money in small claims, do you want to project this as an area of practice that you focus to a very successful, happy customer? What are the tools that you could use? Legal accounting practice management tools, of course, give you the insight to how you're performing in the various areas of practice that you promise as part of your firm's service offerings. I mentioned SurveyMonkey is a great way to get the pulse of your customer too. So combination of data and feedback would now empower you to be ready to hit that successful customer with your product experience and share with them other areas in which you as a firm would be so happy to represent them if and when a need arises, or a family friend or a relative would need. Okay? So you walked into Starbucks to buy that hot latte on a January morning, of course in Canada. But now you have the option to choose from. It's just not a single layer of coffee that's offered. You have cold coffee. You have coffee with non-dairy. You have so many different options that's not restricting that individual to come back to that same brand. They offer tea. They offer breakfast. And this goes for every brand that's continuously improving and listening to what people have to say, but offering areas of practice and promoting that as the overall product experience. Starbucks has its own rewards program. So maybe a law firm or a legal firm, you could have your own rewards program. Though you need to be very careful about how best you operate it. Because it's not, again, understanding the legalities of how that works. End of the day, that product experience converts a happy customer into a brand ambassador. And that's the goal, and that's eventually, once it's a well-oiled machine, as long as you're confident that you can get the results done, because that's something that software wouldn't necessarily be able to do. You, the individual, are important to deliver success. The tools, techniques help as much as they can to automate the processes and the consistencies that need to be delivered. Okay? So, last but not the least, how do you deliver consistency across these 4 experiences for your law office, making sure you have a brand guideline document, the right training and learning management processes for personnel management, the right legal accounting practice management tools for business automation, the right marketing tools to create awareness, and the right survey tools, or it could be a combination, to get feedback about a customer's success. And with just maybe another few more minutes left in the webinar, I'm going to jump real quick to give you an example. So let's say I have a matter for a client. The ability for me now to docket and generate the right tools. So if it's, you can see I'm using a playground account for the uLawPractice software as an example to showcase this to you. So if I have my retainer letter, let me go ahead and generate that retainer letter for you, or this could be the engagement letter. There's a certain consistency in my overall brand experience. So it's got Roger Moore from the Moore Law Office. So you've got a letterhead, your own logo. And it's the same thing when, let's say I got a payment. Actually, let me just go ahead and invoice that $452. It would just be shabby if this was in a totally different color, completely irrelevant, does not sometimes have the right firm's name. If you're doing this manually, that leads to manual errors. And you want to be very careful about it. But software tools can help automate this. In the meantime, if you have any specific questions about today's webinar topic, please feel free to use the chat window. Let me reprint that with a slightly different experience. Unfortunately, the winter is here almost, so let's print a winter theme. You're going to see it's the same Roger Moore Law Office, the same logo. It's a different document, but it's a consistent feel. Of course, you have the electronic signature, asking them to pay for that $452 payment. I don't need to go to the bank to get a certified check. Giving them a receipt for that payment. Or actually, let me get that reference number. You get the idea. Of course, practice management tools help automate certain business processes. There are marketing, survey management tools, and other products in the market that you should explore the use to help build brand. Fiverr is a good platform that we have used where you can find freelance individuals who help. And here's a payment receipt with that same letterhead and logo experience. And last, when you're doing a closure or a statement of activity, you provide that very consistent feel. So now this is a small claims matter, and if you want to promote a different area of practice to the same individual, what is important for you to appreciate and understand as a firm is how are you performing in these different areas of practice, right? Because you don't want to promote an area of practice which you feel is not profitable for you to deliver, and you would not be giving your 100% to begin with. So you can clearly see that there's a lot of revenue coming in through real estate. That's a big part of the overall revenue stat. 25%, or actually it's about 15% in criminal. So you get the idea. So the legal accounting practice management tools also gives you factual information that makes you make informed decisions for not only your business, but also translating it to your overall brand, because the brand reflects the business. Okay? So once again, joining me in today's webinar, which is titled, How Do You Ensure BX, CX, UX, and PX is high in your law office? Again, accredited for 1 hour of professionalism CPD credits in the provinces of Ontario, British Columbia, and New Brunswick. Thank you once again for joining me. I hope you can take away something from this webinar and start to work on those aspects that you believe can improve your overall experiences that you offer to your client. And this particular webinar is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel as early as Monday. And feel free to review that webinar on demand whenever you need to. And I'll pause just for a few more minutes because we're already past the proposed time to answer any questions that you may have.